Welcome to the deep dive where we take your fascination with a topic and we really like plunge in.
We dive deep.
Exactly.
Dang.
And today we are diving into a classic Ghost in the Shell. And judging by the sources you sent in, you're interested in going way beyond just like doing a rewatch. You wanna.
Yeah, this is not just another anime rewatch.
Yeah.
This is a deep dive.
It's not every anime that sparks debates decades later, right?
Exactly. And still holds up.
It really does.
Yeah.
And we've got like your Wikipedia entry for like the basic facts.
Right.
But then you've got these YouTube essays, article. Like it's a real mix of hardcore analysis and like passionate takes on it.
Yeah.
Kind of like the film itself, right?
Precisely. And I think one of the things that's so intriguing about Ghost in the Shell is how it takes these kind of cyberpunk tropes, especially when you're talking about the setting Newport City. On the surface, you have all the elements there.
It's got that classic look.
The rain, the neon, the urban decay.
Yeah.
But one of the articles that you sent, I believe it was from The Verge, pointed out something really interesting.
Okay.
And that is that decay isn't just aesthetic. It's almost like it's become part of the city's identity.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of dystopian stories that we see, life in Newport City is very bustling. People are well-dressed. The markets are thriving.
Yeah. It's not.
It's almost as if the decay is just part of the landscape.
It's like that chipped paint on like an old beloved car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not broken. It's just part of its character at this point.
Right.
And this connects directly to Major Kusanagi's internal struggle, doesn't it? She's trying to figure out if she is more than just her cybernetic shell, just like the city is more than just this like rundown exterior.
Exactly. Ghost in the Shell is all about blurring the lines between what we consider decay and what might actually be a form of progress or even evolution.
It makes you think about our own cities a bit differently. I mean,
Thank God.
are those abandoned buildings just eyesores, or are they the seeds of something new, something we can't quite see yet?
Perhaps.
Oh.
But I think we can shift our focus a bit from the larger urban landscape to the even more complex landscape of the mind.
Okay.
You sent over a couple of sources that really delve into Major Kusanagi's existential crisis.
Yeah.
And as the Wikipedia entry kind of reminds us, she's almost entirely cybernetic except for her ghost, her consciousness.
Right.
Which begs the question, her ghost, to a certain, is it a copy or is it something else entirely?
Yeah. One of the YouTube essays you shared compared the film to the video game Soma. And I thought that was really interesting because they both kind of deal with this fear of like replicated consciousness.
Right.
But Ghost in the Shell forces us to confront that fear through like Motoko's very personal struggle.
Yeah.
It makes it like really real and immediate.
It does. And it's a question that's especially relevant today with the, rapid advancement of AI.
Oh, absolutely.
If our thoughts and memories could be manipulated or even programmed, how can we be certain that we are the ones in control and not just lines of code executing someone else's program?
That's a chilling thought.
You
It
know.
is a little chilling. However, one source pointed out a much simpler approach to Motoko's crisis that kind of echoed Batu's perspective in the film,
Right.
which is,
The classic Cartesian argument.
yeah,
I think, therefore I am.
right.
This essay argued that Batu's point, why simple, really holds a powerful truth. If Motoko can doubt,
Okay.
if she can question her own existence, then she must exist,
Okay.
regardless of what form that existence takes.
That's comforting.
Right.
But is it that simple, though? Because this is Ghost in the Shell we're talking about.
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, because the same source highlighted this little whispered line from that boat scene, where it's like, what we see now is a reflection soon, face to face.
Right.
And like, whose thought was that Motoko doesn't answer,
Right.
which suggests that maybe, just maybe, she's not the one fully in control of her own thoughts.
And that's what's so fascinating, because centuries before, Descartes, philosophers like Nietzsche were already challenging this whole notion of a unified individual self.
So you're saying our brains might be more like receivers
Potentially.
tuned into this network of influences rather than like the sole originators of thought?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
And I think it's one that the film really encourages us to consider. Think about Carl Jung's concept of complexes.
Okay.
These kind of unconscious patterns of thought and behavior
Right.
that can really exert a powerful influence over our actions and decisions.
So instead of us controlling our complexes could actually be controlling us.
In a sense,
Yeah.
Jung said, we all know people have complexes, but complexes can have us.
Oh, wow.
That urge for revenge that Motoko feels, that drive for self-preservation. Are those truly her desires, or
Mhm.
are they echoes of something ancient, embedded deep within her being?
So instead of a ghost in a shell, maybe it's more like a signal flickering on this vast unseen network.
And that is the question I think that Ghost in the Shell really forces us to confront.
Which is?
What if our sense of self is more fluid,
Right.
more fragmented than we would like to
Yeah.
believe?
Okay.
All right, so you've definitely given us and our listener a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But before we spiral too far down the rabbit hole of consciousness,
Right.
let's dive into one of those little scenes that seems kind of insignificant at first, but actually might have a ton of symbolic weight.
Okay.
You know that part with the tank battle where that Tree of Life mural gets kind of caught in the crossfire?
Yeah.
2 of the YouTube essays you sent had totally opposite takes on what it all means.
It is a really interesting point of contention.
Yeah.
Because one of the essays really sees it as a direct critique of organized religion, technology, literally blasting away these old belief systems.
Okay.
But then the other one argued that it's not so much about destruction as it is about transcendence. Humanity moving beyond these systems, not just getting rid of them.
Classic Ghost in the Shell.
Right.
They're not going to hit you over the head with the meaning.
Exactly.
It's they're giving you these puzzle pieces.
It's much more about them providing these really interesting questions and then trusting the audience to kind of come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, and I like
and
that.
engage with the material.
Yeah, sounds more fun that way.
Yeah.
But, okay, so the meaning of the Tree of Life, we could debate that for days.
Right.
But the symbol itself, you can't deny, that's a powerful image.
It's incredibly potent.
Yeah, it speaks to interconnectedness and growth.
Yeah.
And the cycle of life and death.
Absolutely.
And this is where I kind of geek out a bit, but isn't the Tree of Life also a big deal in alchemy?
Oh, absolutely.
Uniting these opposing forces?
Yeah, the male and the female, the light and the dark.
Yeah.
All coming together to make something new.
Right, exactly. So when Motoko merges with the puppet master at the end, could we see that as its own kind of alchemical wedding?
It's a really interesting parallel.
Because she's shedding her physical body, right? Her old definition of self, and combining with this digital consciousness.
Right.
So are we witnessing the destruction of the old human, and then bam, something totally new pops out?
And are we ready for it?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the question.
Oshii, you magnificent nerd.
Right.
But, we're talking about symbolism and philosophy and all this deep stuff, but we can't forget about how visually stunning this film is.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, even the Wikipedia entry you sent mentions how amazing the animation looks even today.
It's almost 30 years old and it still holds up.
How is that even possible?
And I think it's more than just looking cool.
Although it definitely still looks cool.
Although it does.
Let's be real.
It's a beautiful film.
It is.
But, one of the articles you sent made a really good point. The animation style itself is it's mirroring all the themes we're talking about.
Okay.
It blends that traditional cell animation with groundbreaking CGI.
Yeah. It's a hybrid.
So just like Major Kusanagi herself, it's a hybrid.
Even those cityscapes, they're so detailed. It's almost three-dimensional.
Yes.
You feel you could right into those rain slick alleys.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's that fusion of the tangible and the digital that just sucks you right in.
It's very captivating.
It is. And it's no wonder that this film has had such a huge influence.
Oh, yeah.
And not just on anime. I mean on sci-fi filmmaking in general.
Hugely influential.
And yeah, everyone always mentions The Matrix.
Right.
Which obviously borrows a lot from the look and the themes of Ghost in the Shell.
It wears its influences on its sleeve.
It does. But I would argue that even something like Blade Runner 2049, visually, that owes a lot to Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, absolutely.
That whole blend of gritty realism, but then also this ethereal beauty.
Yes.
With human emotion playing out against this backdrop of cold technology.
Very evocative.
And it's all there in Ghost in the Shell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still working its magic today.
It is. But I'm curious, beyond the visuals, beyond the action, what keeps you coming back to this film? What does that spark that connection?
Because it's more than just cool, right?
It's true.
There's something about the questions it raises.
What are those questions for you?
Well, they just feel more and more relevant as every year goes by.
Oh, absolutely.
And as we hurtle towards this future where we're completely intertwined with technology, it's getting harder and harder to write this stuff off as just sci-fi,
It's becoming less and less fictional and a lot more realistic.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, what elevates this film from, just a really cool action movie to like a genuine work of art.
Totally.
Because it's really holding up that mirror
Yeah.
to all of our anxieties about technology, our identity, about what consciousness even is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's asking us to really sit with those
So
anxieties.
you confront them head on.
Yeah.
It's more than just like a fun escape, right?
Oh, it's way more than just entertainment.
It gets in your head and it makes you like second guess everything you thought you knew about the world.
And your place in it.
Exactly.
And I think that's really where Ghost in the Shell's legacy lies. It's not just those striking visuals that have been, borrowed and reinterpreted.
Right.
But it's like the film's thematic DNA,
Ooh, I like that.
It's everywhere.
It is.
It's in everything we see today.
Well, and you look at stuff like Westworld or Black Mirror or even Upload.
Right.
It's all dealing with this idea that our technology is pushing us further and further to this point where being human and being a machine, like that line's getting blurrier and blurrier.
And Ghost in the Shell wasn't just ahead of the curve in terms of the technology itself, but also in asking, okay, but what does all this mean for us?
Yeah, like what happens to our humanity when we can just download our brains into a computer?
Right. When we can enhance our bodies, when we can merge with AI.
That's some heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff.
And the film doesn't shy away from it at all.
No, it doesn't.
If anything, it's like it embraces the ambiguity,
It's like it's inviting us to wrestle with it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's saying, here you go, audience, figure this out.
Let me know when you get there.
Right. And we're all still trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
So after this deep dive, right, we've explored all these different sources. We've unpacked all these themes. Like, where does that leave you?
Well,
Where does it leave our listener?
Yes. Hopefully our listener is coming away from this with a renewed sense of wonder.
About the film itself.
About Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, and its power. Because this is a film you can revisit again and again and again.
Oh, for sure.
And every time you watch it, you're going to find something new.
It's true. And you know what else? I'm hoping our listeners feel ready to go even deeper on their own.
Yes, go back and rewatch it.
Exactly. Go back. Reread those articles.
Yeah.
Really sit with those YouTube essays and let those ideas like spark something.
Yeah, have conversations, share it with people.
Because at the end of the day, isn't that what makes a deep dive really rewarding?
It is.
It's not just about us talking here.
It's about sparking that curiosity.
Right. It's about taking these ideas and letting them like bounce around in your head and seeing what happens.
And realizing that it's okay not to have all the answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's the point of Ghost in the Shell.
Maybe it is.
Well, on that note,
I think that's a good place to leave it.
I think so too. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll have to do a whole other deep dive on this film because it'll have changed again.
Right, because we'll have changed.
Exactly.
Our relationship with technology is evolving so rapidly. Who knows what we'll be grappling with in 5 years, 10 years.
It's both exciting and terrifying.
It is a little bit of both.
Isn't it though?
That's the future we're living in.
That is the future. Well, thank you so much for diving deep with me today. This was awesome.
Oh, this was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to our listeners for sending in such amazing sources and for going on this journey with us.
We'll see you next time.
Until next time, keep exploring.